Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be reviewing legendary Marvel Studios' The First 10 Years Phase 1 deck building game by Upper Deck. Now if you think the title is a bit of a mouthful, don't worry too much about the game as it's a lot more straightforward. Now for those not familiar with legendary deck building games, there are quite a few available at the moment with many different themes, such as Aliens, Predator, there's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer one, there's even a Big Trouble in Little China one. However, one of the most popular ones is the Marvel franchise. And that is the franchise that is attached to the actual comic books, the Marvel sort of animations. This one is a bit of a reset and an intro into the game with this core set based upon the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now in this core set, you get a whopping 393 cards. Now as somebody quite new to deck building, that was quite daunting when I first opened the box. However, don't be put off by that. In this core set, there are 7 superheroes to play as. We've got Thor, Captain America, Black Widow, Nick Fury, Iron Man, Hawkeye, and the Hulk. There's also 3 mastermind villains to try and defeat. There's Red Skull, Ironmonger, and Loki. Also included in this core set is a nice playable neoprene mat, and that's actually a really nice addition. It's quite nice to play on. There's some issues with it, but we'll come on to them in the pros and cons. However, it really is nice to see a playable mat inside that core set. Now essentially how the game plays is you have a starting deck of 12 cards. And in this 12 card deck, there are 8 Shield Agent Hero cards, and there are 4 Shield Trooper cards. And you use these cards to either fight against the henchmen and the villains, or you use them to recruit the superheroes into the SHIELD organization to try and help you to defeat the Mastermind. Now the game itself is pretty straightforward. You start the game by taking 1 card from the top of the villain deck, and the villain will enter the city via the sewers. Then you take the top 6 cards of your starting deck, and you can use them to either recruit superheroes or to try and fight any villains that have entered the city. Once you've played all the cards you can, you then discard your hand into the discard pile and the game resets and we start again. So in the next turn, we would then flip another card from the villain deck. Here we have one of the henchmen that have entered the city, and you push the villains along till eventually we will get so many villains out that once they come off the end, they manage to escape the city. If you manage to defeat them, there's a cost on the card, and these are victory points. Now as you recruit some of the superheroes and you get the ability to do more damage, you can start to attack the Mastermind. You have to attack the Mastermind 4 times to defeat him, and then you will win the game. However, the Mastermind has a scheme to try and complete, and if he completes his scheme before you can defeat him, then you've lost the game and the Mastermind is the winner. So if you're new to deck builders, you might be asking, where is the deck building element? Well, let me show you an example turn and I'll show you how that works. So we've just drawn one of the villains. That is the first thing we do. We then take the top 6 cards from our deck, and here I have 2 fight points and 4, you just shuffle them around, and 4 recruitment points. Now 2 fight points won't defeat either of these 2 villains because they have 3 fight points each. You have to equal or better it to defeat them. And it definitely won't be enough for our evil Mastermind as he's on 7. So therefore these go into a discard pile. I'll use 3 of these recruitment points to recruit Iron Man here. Once you take a card from the superhero row, you instantly replace it with another. I've got nothing I can spend 1 recruitment point on, so again that will go into my discard pile. I'll pop that there. Then the next turn comes along. We have another villain enters the city. Everybody moves along. I take the last 6 cards that were from my starting hand of 12. Here I again have 4 recruitment points and 2 fight points. Again, I can't use the 2 fight points because we have a 4, 3, 3 and a 7. So they will go onto my discard pile. I then have 4 recruitment points. So in this instance, I recruit the Hulk for 4 points. He goes into my discard pile. The 4 points go into my discard pile too. We replace the superhero and then the game resets again. So another villain enters the city Now we don't have any cards left to draw. So we take the discard pile, we give it a shuffle, and we take the top 6 cards from the discard pile. So here you can see I have 1, 2, 3 recruitment points. I have 2 fight points, but I've also now drawn the Hulk card. This is how your deck starts to build up. So the more hands you play, the more you'll recruit, the more they'll go into your discard pile, and eventually you'll end up with more superheroes in your hand able to do more damage. So for this instance, Hulk gives me 2 damage. I have 2 damage available here from my 2 troopers. That means I can do 4 damage. So I will choose to take out this villain here. There is a number 3 on this card, which means I get 3 victory points for defeating the villain. And there is also a fight action here on the card, which says play the top 2 cards of the villain deck. So I get the victory points for this. Those cards go back to my discard pile, and I have to play the top 2 cards. So here we have another one enters the city, and another one enters the city. So for all I defeated 1, I brought 2 more back. So it's getting a little crowded now. I can then use my 3 remaining recruitment points to recruit Iron Man here. He goes into my discard pile. My recruitment points go into my discard pile. And then we reset and go again. And that is how you build up your deck with more and more superheroes. Eventually over the game, making your hand more powerful. However, all the time you're making your hand more powerful, more and more villains are entering the city. Now, once you recruit these superheroes, you'll notice there's a symbol in the top corner. One shows that they're a member of the Avengers. The Nick Fury card has the shield logo. And then you also have another logo here. This one relates to Iron Man and is a tech symbol. And then you'll see some text at the bottom of the cards. In this instance, when you play this card, you draw another card from your pile. However, if you've already played a card with a text symbol on this turn, you then get to draw another card. And then in this way, you can combo some cards together. So for example, if you had these 2 cards in your hand, you could play the first one, which would then allow you to draw 2 cards. And then you would play the second card, which would then allow you to draw another card and then draw a 4th card because you've already comboed the symbols. All of the different characters have these symbols. So just referencing the rulebook here, there is strength, there is instinct, there's covert, there's tech, and there's ranged heroes. So you can really build up your deck and then choose in which order to play them to get the most powerful combinations out of it. And that is the beauty of getting a stronger deck and building your deck over time to really play those powerful combos. So ultimately, that's how the deck building game works. What did I think of it? Well, I should say that this is the first deck building game I've ever played, so I guess I have nothing really to compare it against. But what I would say is that's a good point if you're thinking of getting into deck building games for the first time. Well, as I said before, there are almost 400 cards in the deck. So when I first opened the box, that was quite daunting. Those cards are arranged into 4 sort of sealed decks, and 3 of those decks are exactly the same, and 1 is different. Now, the rulebook didn't exactly explain what I had to do with them. Now, that might seem obvious if you've played deck builders before, but as a brand new player, it wasn't clear what I had to do. I unwrapped them, I was met with a pile of cards, and actually the rulebook was telling me to set up my villain deck and set up this, and actually that wasn't particularly clear. Now, I got the hang of it eventually. I did watch a couple of YouTube videos, and it actually became quite clear. Actually, it wasn't too difficult, and an extra little bit of information in the rulebook would have helped. So, for example, you need to separate out the superheroes into their individual decks of 14 cards. You need to set out all of the henchmen and all of the villains into their individual decks. You need to set out each of the masterminds and their 4 tactic cards, and then sort out your bystanders, who are basically, these are innocent bystanders in the game, who you're trying to rescue and trying to stop the villains from escaping with. Sort out your wound cards, and then there are things like twists and strikes as well. Once I sorted it all out, the actual sorting of all of the cards is actually takes some time. The setup of the game can take quite some time as well. So before I'd even managed to play my first game, it took me quite some time to set up. Now that said, once I got playing, the game was really slick, it's really intuitive, and actually it's quite a lot of fun. The downside then was, once I ended the game and all of these cards were shuffled back together again, I then had to separate them all back out again to put back into the box. So setup time, breakdown time can be quite frustrating, but the game itself plays really well. Now there's been a bit of chat online about this particular set, as some of the legendary Marvel sort of die-hard players who play using the original comic book print say that this is 90% a reskin of the original core set. Now if you're brand new coming into the game, that's not a problem. However, if you're a collector, you might be a little bit put off about buying this. One of the things that some people don't like as well is that each card actually has the name of the film where the still has been taken from. Now me personally, I quite like that. I'm a bit of a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan, and it's quite nice to see those, but it's an aesthetic that might not be for everyone. The playmat itself has also taken a little bit of criticism too. So whilst I think the quality is nice, one thing is the mat has been made to fit inside the box, which is great. However, these top places where you place cards are actually only sort of a third of the height of the card. So what you have to do is you have to kind of hang the cards off the end of the mat. Now, whilst this might not seem like a big deal, if you decide to sleeve your cards, you know how slippy cards get when they're in sleeves, and if there's a bit of an incline, you just know they're all going to pour off towards the back. So you may want to put something underneath it, or you may not want to sleeve your cards for that. Now, one other thing that is a little problem with the mat is that where the cards go is highlighted on there, and the artwork is very nice. However, it doesn't actually tell you which cards go in which place. There is a diagram in the book which kind of gives you some idea, whilst not specifically calling out what they are. There is some pictures of what cards go there. However, there are these three areas down the side which actually have no cards on in the picture in the book, and it doesn't really explain what they're for. My assumption is that this could potentially be your discard pile, and this will be where your villains escape to. And this, I think, will be where your twist cards go as they come out from your villain deck. Twist cards basically are what help the villain to achieve his scheme, but it's not really clear. All of that said, it doesn't really stop how the game plays, and I think it is quite thematic. It feels a bit like a Marvel movie, as where you've got the villains entering a city and moving through to try and escape, and you're trying to recruit heroes with your SHIELD agents and trying to defeat the evil mastermind before they can complete their scheme. So actually, it is quite thematic. Now, one thing is, on the front of the rulebook here, and on the front of the box, there are more heroes than are actually in the core set. So here you'll see Star-Lord, and you'll also see Black Panther, for example, and they are not in this core set. Now, the assumption is that they'll probably come as expansions down the line. However, you might be sort of mistakenly thinking that they're inside there, and you get to play as all those heroes. So that's just one thing to watch out for. So as my first deck building game, I actually really enjoyed it. It's nice that you can play 1 to 5 players, and it's a game I don't mind playing solo. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything by not playing with somebody. If you're a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then I think this core set will be really worth picking up. If you want to play this alongside a younger person, they'll certainly enjoy it if they're into their superheroes. Pulling out those superheroes and recruiting them into SHIELD to try and defeat the likes of the Red Skull is actually really fun. So overall, I really enjoyed playing this, and I'll definitely play it again in the future. I'm not sure I'd pick up any expansions in the short term until I'd really exhausted what was in this core set, but who knows, it depends on how much those expansions are. The only downsides I would say is the setup time and the breakdown time is quite long, and this mat could have been a little bit bigger, and it could have done with some text to say what cards go where. But other than that, really fun game. Really enjoyed my first deck building game. I'll certainly try others, as I'm sure others will have some kind of different feel to it. Let me know down in the comments, have you played legendary games before? Which one is your favourite theme? Have you got any other deck building games that you prefer over something like legendary? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.